So Gene Jensen, Flukemaster, man, thanks for sitting down and doing this with me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, man. I'm glad to be here. I really am. I'm excited. I love doing these. So.
Yeah. Well, the podcast is kind of a new thing
Yep.
for me. I've done about 27 episodes now, I think, and I just really it's more of a passion project than anything else for me. I really enjoy getting to know people that that I've watched or respect or get motivation or inspiration from, and you're definitely one, man. You are definitely one. I have watched you myself, and then I've also watched you through my son, who is an aspiring bass fisherman, and then gets a boat, and then starts to take on the bigger lakes and things like that. And man, he has picked up a lot of stuff from your videos.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, so what about this? Like, how did this happen for you?
It's almost like a blurry dream now. It's been a long time. I started 11 years ago, 12 years ago.
Really?
YouTube was about a year old. It was just a place to host videos, and I've been a Scoutmaster or involved in scouting for going on 25 years.
Yeah.
And so I had a bunch of Boy Scouts. I took them fishing one on a camp out. They loved it. They wanted to learn more about it. And I worked weekends at a trauma center in Augusta, Georgia, at the Medical College of Georgia. So
Are you a EMT?
I was an X-ray technician.
Okay.
And so I worked 15 to 18-hour shifts depending on the work. And I couldn't take them fishing on the weekends. So I said, you know what? I said, I know how to shoot pictures. I know the kind of the basics of editing. Let me get on YouTube, teach myself how to edit. And I said, I'll make some videos. I'll put them on YouTube and let you guys watch them. And that's kind of how it started. And then after about a year of doing that, I do, one maybe a week or one a month, depending on. And I was guiding up in a place called Richmond Mill Lake, which is a Kingfisher Society, giant bass, giant bluegill. It was a pay-to-play, expensive place.
Yeah.
But I was guiding up there, and so I was able to make videos for them pretty quick. And they would learn, but then I realized there were other people that were watching the videos too, and I just kept doing it. I fell in love with just the fact that I was teaching people how to fish, and it has grown into something that I never imagined. And I didn't know you could make money on YouTube even for the first 4 years of doing it. I had no clue. And then that first $100 check came in, and I was like, a little bit of motivation. And then I found out that I was helping addicts, teaching
Really?
them a kind of getting them addicted to something else besides the drugs, giving them an outlet. And then just recently, I don't know why I didn't think of this long before, but a light bulb went off, and I'm teaching a lot of fathers and mothers how to teach their kids how to fish. And that's where I think the fishing industry has really missed the ball over the years. They're getting better, but over the years of me doing this, people stopped teaching people how to fish.
Yeah.
And we didn't realize that their dads have checked out, uncles have checked out, grandfathers, nobody, I've got a ton of adults. Like, my dad never fished, but now I'm fishing because I've watched your videos. And that it's happened, and there's nobody out there to teach these kids.
Right.
And that was 2 generations ago or a generation ago. And so now I've got dads in the early 20s, mid-20s, all the way up to 30 watching videos and then turning around, and it's giving them something to do with their kids, and then dad's the hero,
Right.
or mom's the hero. And I always try to keep in the back of my head that there's single moms out there that have no clue where to start.
Right. No, I've long thought that is a giant hole that needs to be filled in the industry, because obviously, if we want fishing to continue, before this even started, we were talking about some conservation issues. If those are important to us, the only way that we can have a big impact is to continue to bring in new anglers to the sport. I think that's huge. And it has long been an underlying theme of everything that we do, mostly because both Rich and I, we have children. And so we're teaching our kids how to fish. And in doing that, we're realizing, wow, we are 2 people that supposedly really know what we're doing, but here are all these challenges that we're coming to with teaching kids how to fish. And we've got boats, and we've got knowledge, and we've got opportunities, and we know people, and still it's not that easy.
No.
Right. So when you're doing that, I'm particularly interested in teaching the moms and the dads, like what you're doing to teach them how to fish, because or not even teach them how to fish, but show them what the opportunities are to get their kids out on the water. What is that looking like?
Actually, it's not that difficult, because a lot of times it's the kids that go to the moms and go to the dads
Right.
and say, "Hey, can you take me fishing?" And they've already seen a couple, 2, 3 of my videos, and they're like, "Dad's like, well, I don't know how to do this," because at ICAST, I think it was ICAST. Yeah, there was a dad that came up to me. He said, "My son got me into fishing, and that's because of your videos." And so that's happening. And he's like, now we have something we do every weekend together. And same thing. I had my sister. I've got 4 sisters, and one of my sisters told me, she said, as you do these videos and you start talking about single moms or thinking about single moms, just understand there's moms out there like her that are afraid to go into a tackle shop and ask the guy behind the counter.
100%.
Yeah, and she said, understand that. And that's where the understanding is behind my plans. I have a God-given talent to teach.
Yeah.
I'm an okay fisherman. Chickamauga kicked my tail this morning. But I'm really good at explaining things and keeping myself at the same level as the student.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't talk down to people because there's no reason to, because I don't judge anybody. I don't think anybody stinks. I do too. I mean, I think I stink worse than most people. But it's just a talent that I've got that just is fun to share.
So do you think that you get that because you have experienced all of these challenges yourself? Like, do you think that that's why you're good at putting yourself in the place of, I mean, you're not going to put yourself in the place of a single mom, but you are going to put yourself in a place of somebody that is like, man, that's a big lake. I don't know. I've got a little boat. Like, I don't, I mean, should I go out on that, or should I stick to the farm ponds? Or, like, are you able, is that one of the reasons why that you are able to put yourself in the position of these anglers?
My dad's my hero, or he was my hero. He passed away this last December of Parkinson's.
Sorry to hear that.
But he was 43 years old when I was born, and I'm 43 now.
Wow.
So my dad was an old man, and he's a trout fisherman. Mm-hmm. He has never been in a boat with me. He's taken me on one boat, and I didn't see the ocean until I was 16 years old and could drive there. He was in the Navy during the Korean War and didn't get off a ship for 3 years. Mm-hmm. And so he did not want to see the ocean. He didn't want to get in a boat, and he was a trout fisherman. So we spent every weekend that we possibly could up in the mountains of North Georgia with spinning gear and fly gear and went trout fishing. And so he taught me that part. He didn't teach me how to bass fish. He didn't teach me how to fish any lakes or ponds. And that's where I learned on my own, but I learned in my mid-20s to between 20 and 30. I did start a little bit when I was 16, 17 with my best friend, but I didn't get serious about it until my mid-20s. And then I had all these scouts, and a lot of them were going through that. And I'm an observer, and I mentor these young men and teach them how to be adults and how to be leaders. And at the same time, I see what they go through, and I'm like, that's where I get the understanding, is because those kids have always been like my sons. And so I pay attention to what they're going through, and it just kind of helps to, when I'm planning my videos. So
well, that's like getting years and years and years of experience in a condensed fashion. You're watching, 20 scouts go through this all at the same time, and this kid's getting it really easy. This kid's having a real hard time. Mm-hmm. This kid is not paying attention at all. He's not interested, and these others are kind of middle of the road, right? Yep. And so you're seeing, okay, well, that's a cross section of the United States or of the world. You're going to have a couple that are just going to get it, and maybe you don't even need to help those people, but I need to concentrate on these people, and here are the problems. Like, that guy's having a problem tying this knot. Mm-hmm. Why?
Yep.
And so you're able to really, I mean, because that's what a fishing guide like myself, I think, becomes a very good teacher, because you see all of these opportunities and all of these challenges that people are having, and they're not always the same for everybody.
Right.
But you get a lot of experience real fast.
Yep.
Rather than just trying to go at it alone.
Right, and knot tying is actually a pretty good analogy of that. You have kids that can watch the line and learn how to tie a knot, and then you have kids that have to watch your fingers and learn how to tie a knot.
Yeah.
And so you have to explain it both ways, and that's a lot of the things that I figured out over the years is that, I will I don't have to worry about the ones that can watch the line.
Mm-hmm.
But the ones that have to watch the fingers are a different type of learner. And I'm like, hey, watch my fingers, watch what I'm doing, watch where the line's running through, and then go back and watch it again to watch the line.
That's what I had to do is the fingers. It's the dexterity of tying the knot, and the I get zero value out of the computer generations where it's like
the time lapse stuff.
Well, it just kind of animates the knot, and it goes around once, around twice, around 3 times, around 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, 7 times, and then back through here. And there are no hands.
No hands. Yep.
And that's what I've always thought of as, like, we've had a couple. I put out a knot video series, and they've done pretty well without. I just threw them up there, and then all of a sudden there's a bunch of views. Wow, people really need to know what not to tie, I guess. But I always thought that one of the reasons why those did well is because of the way that I filmed it. You could see how the hands were turning. I talked about the way that my hands were turning. I talked about, okay, now I'm pinching here, and then I use this to go back through, and I make this bigger hole. And that, to me, when someone showed me those knots, that's what I keyed in on.
Yep.
Now, if I had to watch the computer-generated things, I probably wouldn't know very many knots.
So true. And I'm a knot geek, so I like the computer-generated ones, but then I understand that there are a lot of people like you who just cannot get.
I mean, it's all different. I think that's one of the things in school. I have 3 kids. You said you have 4 kids, right? It's one of the things in school now that they embrace. Like, oh, you're a hands-on kind of learner, so we're going to take you over here and show you this way. Or you're an auditory learner, so you need to listen to it. You need to see it. And schools are embracing that now. When I went to school, it was one way.
Oh, yeah.
And if you didn't fit that, you had the dunce cap in the corner.
That's why I was a D student.
Me too.
Yes, because I was dyslexic, and I didn't know it until I was 25 years old.
Right. Really?
And how can an X-ray tech be dyslexic? I got no clue. And I was a really good X-ray tech.
How did medical school?
I went through the Army.
Okay.
And so they kind of force-fed it. But then I had a good buddy of mine, Orlando Stevenson, a little short black dude, about yay big. He was a kickboxer, and I met him on the airplane on the way to basic training, and we were so close that the drill sergeants would get us mixed up because we were always together. But he was a graduate of college, and I was barely a graduate of high school, and we made an agreement. I would get him through basic training, teach him how to shoot because he was from downtown Washington, D.C., never had touched a rifle in his life. And I said, I'll teach you how to shoot. Well, I'll teach you how to run. You teach me how to study and teach me how to take tests. And we were together like that for almost a year and 2 months.
Wow.
We're still really good friends. He lives in Washington State.
What does
I live
he
in
do
Georgia.
for a living now?
He's still an X-ray tech, but he's a director of a department up there. So we got each other through it. And great guy. I mean, literally, we were so close together that they would call me Stevenson and him Jensen every day. And just because we took care of each other, and that was kind of the agreement. And I understood my weaknesses, he understood his, and we worked together.
That's what a good partnership's all about, whether that's a marriage or a friendship or a business partnership or a kind of a on-the-fly partnership like that. Like, man, I need what you've got, and you need what I've got, and let's work together.
Yep, for sure.
So what about the moms and dads in particular? How are you reaching those people?
Just through making sure that mainly it's tagging my videos correctly and proper titles, and I'm not looking to try to attract everybody. If I wanted to attract everybody, I'd be doing crazy videos.
Yeah.
I want to attract those people who want to learn how to fish. You know, same thing with the wrap on my truck. If it just says YouTube Flukemaster on the side, and if somebody's not smart enough to figure out Flukemaster is on YouTube, I can't teach them how to fish.
Yeah.
And it's kind of the same thing as my titles and my tagging and everything else. And then I'm trying to just use social media as a way to push people that way. And I don't do it over.
Yeah.
I don't do it on top of their heads. I just kind of sneak it in every once in a while. But
I would still think that the biggest challenge for what you're proposing is to get to people that don't know anything about fishing.
Yep.
Like, if they don't know anything about fishing, they probably don't realize that fishing is on YouTube.
Right.
Like, or that there's someone out there that could actually be a fishing instructor, or that you could go to a class, or you could do any of these things. A lot of people, I would think, are just maybe they're even at that step beyond that of okay, they don't want to go into the tackle shop and the tackle shop guy say, oh, have you ever, YouTube, right? Well, you should check out these Flukemaster videos. They'll tell you everything you need. Then come back in here, we'll help you with any of this tackle. And it would be that easy.
Yep.
Right? I mean, then, and the tackle shop has a vested interest in putting them towards your videos.
Oh, yeah.
Because then they're going to become a fisherman, but there's an intimidation factor of going in there for the first time, and I think my dog's having a sneezing attack. There's an intimidation factor of going in there for the first time. That's who I want to know what your strategy is. How do you get to that person, whether it's a man or a woman or a grandfather or a grandmother? The kid says, I want to fish, and they say, I don't know anything about fishing.
That's almost strictly word of mouth.
Yeah.
And it is about the only way to do it. I've got really good relationships with a lot of tackle shops and a lot of managers in fishing departments. The one here in Chattanooga, the Sportsman's Warehouse, Sportsman Warehouse here. Really good relationship with them. I've done a few events with them. And I've done videos in their store, which is a lot harder to get permission to do in other stores than I originally thought. And that's been huge.
Yeah.
It's brought business to them, but it also helps because I have that relationship. People come in and asking questions. No problem. They're telling people to go watch the videos. And that's about the only way to do it. And you have to get that spark of interest first in the person, and it's going to be step by step. And eventually, especially older people, are eventually figuring it out that there is a YouTube and there is information on there, and it's getting more and more every year. I notice older and older people commenting on my videos, and it's more and more every single year. And that's kind of how I kind of gauge things is how things will happen year after year. And it's nice to see, 50, 60-year-old men. Had one come to a meet and greet in Minnesota a couple weeks ago, in his 60s. He's like, I never fished until I found your videos.
Wow.
And now he owns a boat.
Is he now doing it because he has someone he wants to teach, or because he just wants to?
He's got grandchildren that I imagine he's teaching.
Yeah.
He still considered himself pretty green, but he has a boat, and he has he goes out on the water he's in Minnesota. There's water everywhere.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I still think that there's a challenge there of. Like you had the one guy that came up to you at ICAST and he says, I'm a dad, now we do this with my son. So his son brought that idea to him, and he's a good enough dad to go, okay, this is way out of my comfort zone. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm going to look like an idiot. I'm sure I will, but I'm going to do it for my son, right? That's a good dad, right, that wants to do something like that and is actually going to follow through with it, and then starts to follow through with it and realizes, oh, this isn't as hard as I thought it was going to be, right? Like here's a guy that's going to show me everything I need to know. I'm going down to the tackle shop. The guy was really nice in the tackle shop, and he helped me out with everything I needed. I spent way more money than I thought I was going to, But there's still the challenge of the other situation of the kid brings it to the parents, and they're like, "No, fishing's dangerous.
Yep.
I'm not going.
Yep.
Like that's not for me.
Yep.
Nobody's ever fished in our family." That's the person.
Yeah.
Like how do you get to them? Because I think there are hundreds of thousands of anglers out there that are not given the opportunity. Because right now, correct me if I'm wrong, but if your parents don't teach you how to fish, or you don't have an uncle or someone in your family, and you're not involved in a scouting program like you were, what else is there?
Yep.
I've seen a couple of things like. Matt Budd in Jupiter, he has this thing called Jupiter Fishing Academy, and it's basically like a summer camp. They go there for a half a day. He takes 4 or 5 kids out on his boat, shows them how to fish, and it's the real deal. I've seen a couple of things like that, this Texas Brigades thing, but I just don't know what the opportunities are. And it just seems like that's a real opportunity for you to figure out how to crack that code.
Yep.
And how to get the word out that you are going to be at these places, and that's what it's for people that have no idea how to fish.
Yeah. It's once again, you got to have that spark of interest. But then again, if you've got a parent that says, no, I can't, or no, I won't, I learned a long time ago in scouting is it's hard to fight the parents.
Yeah.
You know, especially if they're psychologically not right,
Mm-hmm.
or if they just don't care. It's hard to fight the parents. You can, when a young man gets about 15 years old, they start to push away from their parents. And if there's not somebody in place to become a mentor of that young man, it's a lot more difficult for him. He'll find somebody to do it. It may not be the person that you as a parent want.
Right.
And he's going to do it whether you're a good dad or a good mom or whatever. He's going to start to push away because that's what they do. And at about 16 years old, if they don't have a mentor or if they don't have a good, wholesome hobby, they're going to find a hobby, and it may not be the one you want.
Right.
And so I've learned a lot of times is just kind of introduce your children, your teenage children, to good people. You know, like my next door neighbor, who's a good guy. He's a young guy. He's got young girls, and he's taken my 16-year-old and taught him how to weld this summer. And now they're building go-karts. And my son fixed my push mower the other day. I have no clue what to do about a push mower or about small motors. And so, you know, when things break down motor-wise in my house, my 16-year-old fixes them because he sat down on YouTube and he went over to the neighbor and he figured out how to work on motors. And he's using terms that I've never even heard before. So, yeah, you just got to let them find their way, but guide them, push them,
Right.
And don't be a parent who gives up.
Right.
You know, and you don't have to have an interest in things. I don't have an interest in motors.
Right.
I know enough to get myself in trouble, but I know not to stop my children from having that opportunity.
Right.
And I told him, I said, I am so proud of you and so happy that you're doing this, but I can't help you. Because, for one, I don't have time because YouTube. And number two is I have no clue where to start.
Right.
But I let him do it.
But that's exactly the position that so many people find themselves in is fishing. When the kid comes home and is like, look, I caught this fish. I'm so happy. I want to do this again. Let's go do it. And the parents are like, well, I don't have any time. I'm really happy for you.
Mm-hmm.
You're on your own.
Right. Yep. And the biggest thing is I'm guiding him. I'm doing what I can.
Right.
I'm like, I don't have a lot of money to help you with parts and stuff. I said, but there's a lot of old widows and widowers up and down this street that we live on that need their lawn mowed.
Mm-hmm.
I said, you use my lawnmower, pay me half for the gas on the lawnmower because it's a 0 turn, it's a big one, and go mow lawns and get some money. And he was amazed at how much money he could get. Yeah. He said, Dad, I'm making $200 a weekend. I'm like, good. He said, but then I'm spending all on parts. But it is, and I'll order stuff for him, and we'll, you know, I let him, I help him figure things out. But that's going to be a lesson in life that it's going to last him forever, you know. And it's just one of those things. If you're a parent who aren't interested in what your kids want to do, don't keep them from doing it. Try to support them in any way you can.
Yeah.
And so it's pretty fun. It's fun to watch him. I mean, I was so proud when he got that piece of junk go-kart from the old lady up the street, brought it home, and 3-4 weeks later, he's running it around the yard with a Georgia Bulldog flag flapping from the back. And I'm like, proud daddy moment, you know.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So that is, how old are your kids?
16, 13, and Jordan, he's 13. 16, 13, 10, and 9. Yeah. My daughter's 9. I got 3 boys.
Yeah, we got some overlap. I've got 2 boys and then a girl. My oldest son's about to turn 21. My middle son is leaving for college on Saturday and about to turn 19, and then my daughter's getting ready to turn 15. So a lot of changes in my house too. Does your son like to fish? Of your
they all do.
They all
do. Yep. Yeah, my oldest son, he's the one whose attention span isn't quite as long as it should be. Even if you're catching fish, he'll get bored.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, that's just something you have to know about. And then my middle son, Jordan, he's the one that will get mad when it's time to go, when it's getting dark and it's time to get off the water.
Yeah.
He'll get mad even if we haven't caught any fish. And so, and then John David is, he wants to learn how to fish, but he knows it all already. So he's hard to teach.
Yeah. What about your daughter?
She wants to be pretty. She wants to learn how to do it, but she wants to be pretty doing it.
Yeah.
So she's my diva.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of I have one of those too sometimes, and sometimes she's way into it, and sometimes she's not quite as into it. So with your YouTube subscriber base, I noticed that you do a lot of these meet and greets, and your Friday night thing that
Yep,
you're doing.
yep.
So you have a lot of interaction with your fans.
Yeah, that's key. Yeah, for that Friday Night Live is so much fun to do, and I hate to miss one. I think the only time I miss one is my wife's birthday or a date night that runs a little bit too late. But yeah, it's the interaction with people because it is social media, and social media, last time I checked, is social.
Right, it's supposed to be.
Yeah, it's supposed to be, and if you don't think it is, then you're doing it the wrong way. But to talk to and communicate back and forth with the people who support you and want to learn more from you is key. And that helps me figure out what videos to do.
Yeah.
You know, if I keep seeing the same question over and over again from multiple people, I'm not doing something right. I have missed something, or there's something that's just new to the world, and I haven't done it yet. So, you know, there's a bunch of those things coming up here that I've got planned, and I'm just waiting for all the cards to come together and the stars to align to be able to do.
But you're also doing physical meet and greets, right? Like you're at a tackle shop or other things.
I try to do those every once in a while. I had some YouTubers a couple of years ago make a video that got me a couple of death threats, and the total
what's that
bogus
about?
video. Yeah, it was
What?
it was a total bogus video that they did just to because I was a threat to their numbers. I was the top of the food chain, and they wanted to knock me down. But I had to kind of back off doing meet and greets and start carrying a gun. And because I had 50 or so death threats, but 2 of them, the guys had my address at my home address. So that was kind of a strange little deal that I had to go through for about a year and a half. But
did anything ever happen with that?
I mean, we kind of have an idea who it was, but it's just it was more or less just a threat after a while, and I was like, I just want to keep going on with my life and not live it over and over again. It's kind of it was just stressful, and then but I just kept doing it, and I had to slow down my meet and greets, and now I'm just starting to pick them back up to where we were getting 100, 200 people there. Now it's 50 to 100, somewhere around there, and they're a blast. They're a lot of fun. I kind of like them, but then again, I don't get a lot of one-on-one with people.
Yeah.
I'd much rather meet people like at a show or things like that where I have a little bit extra time to sit down and talk one-on-one with them. And because I'm a talker, and I love to talk about fishing, so.
Well, that's good. A podcast. You should have your own podcast.
I wish I had the time.
Then you can just talk all day. That's what I find that the podcast is good for. If you have something to say, man, this is the place to say it.
Yep.
But I'm interested in the camaraderie of your group, because it seems like, just looking from the outside in, that, I mean, I've heard it said that, if you have, I don't know how it went. It was something like, if you have 100, that's an idea. If you have 1,000, that's a movement.
Mm-hmm.
And you have way more than that. and you are starting this movement. I mean, that is really what that is. I mean, you are starting a movement of teaching people how to fish and creating an army of well-educated anglers. What kind of responsibility do you feel from what you've built?
I kind of look at that's a really cool question, but I kind of look at it as this is, when I was 27 years old, I figured out who Gene Jensen was, and I kind of liked that guy. And so,
who is he?
That's me. You see me in the same
person
person in the video.
Is who you figured out.
That's who I'm going to be when they dig a hole and put me in the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Is I don't change for anybody. My integrity is the most important thing to me outside of my family and God. And so I tell it the way it is, and I will drop a major sponsor in a heartbeat if they ask me to lie. I won't even hesitate. And I've done it and done it and done it, and I'll keep doing it, because it's not one of those. Money's not important to me. I built my whole thing on the fact that I am straightforward. I don't beat around the bush. If something's bad, I'll mention that it's bad. I won't beat it up like a lot of people do. And then if it's good, I'll let people know. And that's kind of how I am, and it's who I am. And so the fact that that's a lot of responsibility, it's fun. It's still fun.
Mm-hmm.
The unfun part is the audio issues. I have every single video. I had them 3 times today. Looked down and no audio, and I just caught a fish. It happened twice. But it's the fun part is that it is a movement. It's a lot of fun to see other people trying to do what I'm doing, and some succeeding, a lot not. And I love helping those people who are succeeding doing it. I have a kind of a core group of YouTubers that I work with. It's a loose group. We don't have a name. We don't have anything else. We just kind of work together to help each other out. And it's just a lot of fun. And we're helping a lot of people.
Yeah, but you don't feel like I would think that when you're coaching up a lot of people that are coming from various levels,
Yep.
but mostly from what I can tell, you're helping a certain percentage of the population that really needs a lot of help.
Like they're not getting a lot of help.
Right.
Yeah.
You're catering to a group. So those people don't have mentors at the boat ramp. They don't have mentors on the lake necessarily to know what good ethical behavior is. And I would think that there would be some form of responsibility that you feel like, okay, I'm going to teach these people, and yes, I'm going to put more people out on the lake, but I'm going to teach them how to do this in a way that they are going to stay out of trouble. They're not going to be a burden on other anglers. It's going to be a benefit to the sport rather than just a bunch of yahoos out here running around with their heads cut off. Do you think about that ever?
No, because I kind of look at it like, well, I guess I could think about it. It's more or less what kind of an example am I setting as a person is one thing. And I do mention, trespassing to fish it irritates me to no end. And so I'm always one to jump on that and to a fault almost. And so I don't believe we should be ticking off landowners to go fishing.
Right.
It's not hard to get permission. Here in the South, public bank fishing is not. It's not a lot of it comparative to New Jersey or anywhere up there where a lot of it is public owned, and they have bank fishing opportunities everywhere, it seems like. And so it's harder down here to go and with a minimal amount of money and go fishing unless you got somebody's farm pond or, especially down in Georgia. But, it's the responsibility is I'm up to it, always have been. I've been responsible for a lot of young men over 25 years of doing scouting. And if I had $1 for every time their wife has come and contacted me, said, I can't believe how many times he says, Mr. Jensen was right, that kind of stuff, because I do give a lot of advice, and I've lived my life, not a lot of it. Hopefully I still got another 40 or 50 years, but I've made a lot of mistakes as a teenager, and I've done a lot of good things as a teenager and growing up into my 20s. And so I kind of see these things, and I love mentoring these kids, but it's turned into a passion of just, I want people to get out there on the water and enjoy what I do and what I see every day, and understand that getting out on the water. I had a client one day, went back years ago when I was guiding. He's like, there's just something magical about being on the water. So that's kind of where I'm at. I was like, I want to get people out on the water, whether it's on the bank or in a kayak or whatever, and just feel it,
So much of the underlying theme that we've had, and it's not as obvious as what you're doing for our stuff. I mean, we always try to help kids and try to get kids on the show, our own kids or other kids, every single year, and people have watched our kids grow up over the years on the television shows. So it always has been an underlying theme, but so much of what we're doing is associated with kids. And what I find is like kids and parents, like it's what I want to see happen in a lot of situations is I want to see that kid be able to go out with his parents and the cell phone is turned off, they're out of range, there's no distraction, and maybe for the first time in that child's life, and maybe for the first time in that, since cell phones came out, there is an honest, true 100% connection in the present moment right now between that dad and the son. And as a fishing guide or somebody that just takes people fishing occasionally, you just step back and all of a sudden the jokes stop. Like you don't need to entertain anymore because there is this moment that is happening between that father and son or mother and daughter or mother and son or whoever it is on the boat. And you realize there's zero distractions. and maybe for the first time in a long time, or maybe for the first time ever, these two people are not encumbered by technology.
Right.
And in our world today, it, it's just happened in a slow creep.
Yep.
Like when flip phones came out, man, you weren't going to be texting on that. It took three hits of each thing to type out one letter, right? And you couldn't type very fast, and so you would just be like, "Be home soon," and then you'd get back, "Okay," and that's it, right? And there was no reason to have a conversation. And now with text and Snapchat and everything else, that becomes such a tether. Like you are tethered to that phone, like a dog with a leash.
Yep.
And that's what I think is probably of all the things that I see you doing in what you're doing, if you could get 20 people to have that moment and experience that and just be out there on the lake without their phone, with kids, grandkids, the neighbor's kid, whoever, that's an important moment. And I think that it's really, I don't know, one of my favorite commercials that I've ever seen, I think it was a Ford or Chevy commercial or something like that, and they're going through and they keep checking their phone and they keep checking their phone, and then finally it says out of range, and it goes down, and you think that it's going to be they kind of dot, faked left and went right, because you think it's going to be like a cell phone commercial, because the truck was barely in it or the car was barely in it or whatever, and then they finally get to this place and they throw the doors open and they're like, okay, great, nobody's in range. This is awesome. This is where we can camp. I just thought that was the greatest commercial, and that's kind of how it can be on the water. Not so much on the lakes around here, as you probably have good reception, but you can be afraid you're going to get your phone wet or put it up or whatever. But that's a pretty important moment. As somebody that makes a living in social media and on the digital world, which I do in a sense as well. It's funny to think that that's the message that we're trying to convey, as well as, hey, please watch the videos and learn how to fish. Please watch them, but not too much.
Right. Yeah. It's okay to not answer your phone. Yeah. That's the biggest thing. Is I don't answer my phone a lot. So it's I'm sorry to people who try to call me. If I'm out on the water, that phone is not going to be answered unless I have a feeling it's my wife, and then I'll go to look and see if
I always
it
had a
is.
special ring for my wife.
Well, those I don't have one of those what do they call it? iPhone watches, whatever they are. I don't have one, but man, they're nice. The guys that I fish with that have them, they're like, they know who it is, and they don't even answer their phone.
I noticed you don't even wear a watch.
No, I break them off. I cut corners when I go through doors and around, and so I don't wear a watch. I don't even wear my wedding ring because I'm afraid I'm going to.
I went to the silicone wedding ring.
I have one. It irritates me every once in a while.
Yeah, I went to the silicone wedding ring, and I stopped wearing a watch probably, maybe 12 or 13 years ago, and just I had the times on the Lowrance unit. I have it in big.
Yep.
That's the overlay that I always put there first. Edit overlay time, big time right there. So I just don't feel like I need to wear a watch. And when I stopped wearing a watch, it really changed a lot of things. It's almost like the habit of checking your phone, like all the time. Like people are bored, they check their phone.
Yep.
People are waiting, or they don't want to. More importantly than bored, a lot of times people are just socially a little bit uncomfortable, so they just look at their phone so they don't have to look at anybody else. But when I got away from the watch, I just noticed, wow, you're just kind of checking the watch, and what kind of message is that sending to the person that you're with?
Yeah.
And imagine, and that's what I was thinking a long time ago is if I'm looking at my watch, that's telling the person that I'm with that I'm uninterested in what they have to say, and I really just can't wait to get out of here. When in fact, now checking Snapchat while you're talking to somebody, or checking Instagram, or writing an email while you're talking to somebody is the ultimate. And I got to say, it happens to me too. Bad about it. You get all of a sudden you got some things you're waiting on, and then here it comes, and just a second, I'll be right there.
I was bad at that at ICAST, because I'd be taking notes while I was going to the next person, and I'd be, hold on, let me finish typing this up, and then I'd put it in my pocket. But once it was in my pocket, it was done. I mean, I wasn't. But yeah, I'm guilty.
Yeah, I am too. That's definitely a bad habit. But I want to ease resistance, or I want to ease not resistance. reliance.
Mhm.
I want to ease reliance on my phone, and I want to be able to not check it for hours at a time.
Yep.
You know, like there's all kinds of books out there that'll tell you to check your email, you know, at a certain hour every day, check your messages here, and then work between those. Like you might actually get some work done,
Mm-hmm.
because I think that the idea that you can multitask I don't think that's true for many people. Like I don't think many people can multitask. I think most people
Nope.
need to focus on one thing at a time, and if you did, you might get a lot more done.
Yeah.
So let me ask you about when we first started talking. You were talking about your audience, and you were saying that right away. You said, you know, I didn't realize that I was talking to addicts. I didn't realize I was talking to all these people. How do you know that those are the people that are part of your audience?
Because they tell me their stories.
They do.
Yep. Email messages, instant messages on social media. I mean, they tell me their stories.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so that's what I love reading. That's my motivation.
Mm-hmm.
The stories about catching their first fish, the story about winning their first tournament, the story about, hey, you taught me everything I know about bass fishing, and then the stories about addicts and fathers and mothers, and I get them all the time. I get them every day, and that's my motivation. You know, I feed off of that like there's no tomorrow. And I have periods of time where I'm just depressed and down because I can't get anything done, or audio doesn't work, or it's too hot and the weather stinks, or whatever. I drove 1,000 miles to Minnesota to fish for 5 days and got 1 day out of it because of the rain. You know, and so, you know, it's just those stories are like, hey, you're not doing this for you. You're doing it for other people. And like I tell my sponsors this, I was like, you know what? You're not paying me to do this. You're paying my wife to let me do this. And it's the truth. I would do it for free if I could feed my family and feed my wife and put a roof over their head. We're not rich.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we make ends meet every month, and I don't care about being rich. I just want to make sure that she's happy and everybody's fed, and then I'll go off and do my thing. And I would do it for free.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I have 2 hammocks that I keep in my truck, and that's where I sleep. You know, I'll pitch it at a truck stop. I'll pitch it at a rest stop. I don't care. I mean, if I've got to do whatever to go fishing and be able to do what I need to do, I have no problem with that.
Yeah.
You know? Yep. So that's me. I'm the best. My scouts tell me I'm one of the best car campers on the planet.
Yeah.
Because I got everything in the back of my truck I need. I could live for a week or more.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So tell me about the time that you're an X-ray tech,
Mm-hmm.
and all of a sudden, you know, this YouTube thing starts taking off a little more, and maybe more than you expected.
Mm-hmm.
And that first $100 check comes in, like you were telling me about. And then at what point do you start thinking, man, this is what I love to do, but I can't quite do it yet?
Yep.
Tell me about that whole time.
I was a well-paid X-ray tech.
Mm-hmm.
Worked at, like I said, the Medical College of Georgia, but they paid us well, and the cost of living was low, and it was a great place to live, a great city in Evans, Georgia, and I could have done that the rest of my career. I wasn't going up anywhere. I'd had to go back to college, and being dyslexic, that makes things next to impossible. And YouTube started to take off, and I started to watch the growth annually. I would double. I'd grow 100% to 125% annually, and so I crunched the numbers once and told my wife, I said, you know what? I think I should be able to quit my job. I'll be making the same amount of money on YouTube as I'm making as an X-ray tech come April of 2 years ago. And that was 4 years before that. I told my wife that.
And you had forecasted that?
I had forecasted
because of the growth of your subscribers, or the view count, or what?
Everything.
Huh.
This the not just, it's the annual growth, the annual views, the annual revenue. If I maintained the same sponsors I had, everything else, I was like, I should be able to do this. You know, come March of that year.
What'd your
April
wife have to say about that?
At that point in time, she really wasn't sure. We had the arguments early on in time in the business side of it, where I was in the red, And I kept telling her, I was like, look, I didn't ask for a lot of this. A lot of this stuff just happened. This is what I'm supposed to do. I really feel like this is my calling in life, is to do this. I said, so I'm going to make sure that we're not poor, but I'm still going to put forth my 100% effort to make this happen and to see where it goes. And if it doesn't go, I'm an x-ray tech. Heck, I can just keep working. And so April 2 years ago, which was late April, it was 2 weeks after I told my wife I was going to quit my job, I walked out of my job. And the funny thing is I bought a house 2 hours before I sent in my notice. I bought a 8.5 acre.
You wanted to really put the pressure
Yeah.
on.
Well, we had to move. I had to get closer to her family, which was up here in North Georgia mountains. I had to get closer to her family and then closer to better fishing, which is anywhere along the Tennessee River. And so that moved us to Rome, Georgia, and the banks won't give you a loan if you don't have a job. So I signed the loan agreement
With your x-ray tech job.
with my x-ray tech job, and 2 hours later turned in my notice. Everybody at the hospital knew I was leaving.
Yeah.
I mean, I was into social media. If they didn't know I was leaving, that's they got their own problems. But luckily, and this was one of those things where the Lord had something to do with it. My boss, or my boss's boss, has known me since I was 12 years old. His dad was my scoutmaster.
Wow.
We lived 220 miles away from where we grew up. Or no, 120 miles from where we grew up.
Huh.
But we ended up working at the same hospital.
Wow.
And he came to me about 3 months before I quit my job, and he had been watching YouTube and watching me on social media. He's like, I hate surprises. I said, yeah, Lane, I know you do. And he says, I just want to know when, and I want to have a good enough advance notice so I don't just get a letter on my desk saying that you're quitting your job. And I said, I will quit my job in 3 months. And I said, but you got to promise me one thing. You won't let my boss fire me before that or find my replacement. I said, I will train my replacement, and I will work until the minute I walk out that door. And so that was the agreement. I kept my job until it was time for me to leave, and he didn't get surprised.
Right.
And I think his dad and mom would have killed him if anything else had happened. But it was all these things that came together, and I just kind of knew it. And then I watched that little video by who's the guy that hosts the Family Feud, the comedian.
I know who you're talking about.
Harvey.
Yeah, Steve Harvey.
Steve Harvey. And he had a little clip that he did between commercials one day where it's called Jump. And it's just a little pep talk that he gives his audience. And it was a really cool thing about sometimes you just got to take the leap. Yeah. And I did. I just took the leap, and I walked out, and I videotaped the whole thing as I'm walking out of my after signing all the paperwork and signing myself out of my job. And
that's one of your videos?
It's somewhere, deep in my
in
my archives of me walking out and how scared I was. I was like, man, this is crazy. I got 4 kids. I got a wife. I'm walking out of a job that pays $72,000 to $80,000 a year, and I'm ready to do it.
And at that point, you're making something off of the fishing?
Yeah, about that much, about 70 to 80. So it was a 50% pay cut. But we had been living off of my hospital money to that point. We never went beyond our means in that one income. So it was an easy transition. Our lateral movement from the house we lived in to the farm was a lateral movement.
Well, you say an easy transition. It's not an easy transition from somebody with a little bit of life experience like myself. There's no insurance all of a sudden.
Right.
Well,
my wife's a pediatric nurse.
Okay.
And so she's a school nurse now. She's a high school nurse. And so she kept our insurance, and she had our insurance even while I was working at the hospital in the school system, because actually the school system had a better insurance policy than the hospital did.
Right.
So that's kind of how we
but still there's uncertainty, which causes discontent at home. Not necessarily. I mean, it could be with you, not necessarily with you. I'm not placing the blame on your wife. It's like it could be with you, and all of a sudden you're like, "Oh, what did I do?" Did you ever think about that?
No,
never. You just you signed that away and said,
because it's about communication. Yeah, it is totally about communication with your spouse, and we knew it was the right thing, and she was ready for it, and that's a part of getting her up close to her family.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the draw. She was happy to move across the state and get close up there, close to mom and dad and sister and so on and so forth. And so that was part of it. And the other part of it is that it was continuing to grow, and it was, it was a good thing. And I've accidentally created something in the fishing industry that nobody else has done, and a lot of people are having a hard time copying, because I did it early. And I'm still doing it, and it's still growing, and she knew that.
Yeah.
And I told her, I said, look, this is just something that the industry is missing, and something that is going to help the industry grow, going to help people, and I love doing it. And so that's she was all for it. And, one of these days I'll get her to quit her job because we'll be making enough money to pay our own health insurance, but she loves to be a school nurse. She loves nursing. She was a pediatric trauma nurse for 15 years, and she was tired of watching kids die, so she decided she wanted to be a school nurse. Now she gets to catch kids faking it, and she's good at it.
Yeah, she's like, I've seen real pain, and that's
exactly.
not it.
Yep.
That's awesome, man. That's sort of an amazing story, and so many people that listen to this podcast, and so many people that, a lot of people are sending me emails, and just like you, I have been feeding off of these emails. Like, if there's ever a moment where you're like, man, I don't know, it's growing pretty fast, but I don't know. It's hard to get an interview every single week. Whatever the question is, then a few of those emails show up in the email, and you're kind of like, wow, these 3 podcasts that this guy's talking about really helped him, but what I find is a theme among the people that are listening to this is that a lot of them are in the process of or considering a major life change. And some of them are thinking about being a fishing guide. Some of them are thinking about just not doing what they're doing because they really don't like it. They're making plenty great money, but they do not like it. And they're making a change of some sort. They're making a move to a different part of the country that they like more, or they're moving towards their passion. And as a person that has done that myself, but I'm really interested to hear, like, I'm sure that you get the same emails. What do you tell those people that are thinking about doing something different than what they're doing?
Oof.
Each case is kind of its own, but I'm just kind of interested in what you have to say about that.
I get a lot of questions about I'm about to start a YouTube channel, and my response usually is, "Why haven't you started yet?" That means you're not thinking. You're thinking about it,
right?
And that kind of thing, especially YouTube and stuff like that, takes a long time to grow. They think they can start right now and make money right now. I started right then and made money in 4.5 years.
Yeah,
$100.
Yeah,
in 4.5 years. And so you've got to, and the same thing I've told kids since before YouTube. Kids used to say, "I want to be a professional fisherman." I said, "Well, you better go get you a full-time job first, and be sure you can pay your bills and things like that, because you're not going to make a lot of money on fishing." And the same thing with YouTube. You're not going to make money on YouTube for a while. It's shorter now than it was when I started because there's more people on YouTube. But it's hard work. I'm 110 hours a week. I'm leaving here, going home, packing up, going to Louisiana tomorrow. I'll be in Louisiana for a week, and I'm grinding.
Yeah.
And I've got to figure out times between there to make videos and send them to my editor so he can edit them. And so it's a lot of work, and it's getting more and more work because everybody wants content, and even your viewers want a video every other day.
Is that what you're putting out now?
No.
That's what they want. That's your goal. What are you putting out now?
2 to 3 a week. 2 fishing videos, and the live one for right now, that's my minimum. And then as I get a backlog, if I have some short videos, I'll throw them in between, but 2 or 3 good ones. The one today is a good one. I caught 2 fish with the audio not working, but I'm gonna fit them in there somehow. But it's a good one where I just kind of explained how from the time the sun starts to peak to the time till noon, how do you go finding the fish, and what do the fish do during that period of time? And that's kind of that was the goal today. But it's just the biggest thing for me, the advice I give people is don't quit your day job. And if you don't have a day job, if you need a change, you make sure that you can eat and feed yourself and put a roof over your head before you go doing this. And then make sure that this will replace that. That's the smartest thing I ever did. I made sure that this would replace what I was doing. I loved my job as an x-ray tech. Never hated it a day. Because it was easy to tell where people were that came in. They were all having bad days or they wouldn't be at the hospital.
Right.
And I'm really good at helping somebody who have a bad day have a somewhat decent day because I just can talk fun to them. And so it's, I love that job. And I was really, really good at it. I was an expert in orthopedic surgery. I could teach the residents how to do their job. I'd been doing it for long enough, but it was time. And I don't look back and miss it a single day because I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
So, and if you're doing it for the money, at YouTube, you're not gonna.
Right.
It's gonna stink.
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. It's interesting to think about the way that you put it, and that probably is the best advice. Which I don't know. It's excellent advice for that situation.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the advice that I've given is, you got to do it.
You got to do it.
You just got to do it.
Yep.
But where I think that where those two pieces of advice merge together is that what you're saying is make sure that this can replace what you're already doing, and I'm saying you got to just go do it.
Yep.
And where there's a misunderstanding, I think, with people that think that they're going to start a YouTube channel and all of a sudden have start making money, or I get emails all the time of I need to get sponsored, and where there's a misunderstanding is like what you're saying is you've got a full-time job as an x-ray tech, which is a job that you can't be screwing around.
Right.
Like lots of people are placing tremendous responsibility for you. So it's not like you're not working at Starbucks
right.
part-time. You have a full-on responsibility. But in order to make this other thing work, I'm sure that you were working more than 110 hours a week for a time until you can build this up to where you can think about that, right?
Yep.
And that's so it all boils down to work. Like you can't be afraid to work. And nobody at this table is telling you that you can't go out and do anything that you want to do. But you got to work for it.
Oh yeah. If you don't have the work ethic, it is not, no matter what you do, it's not going to work.
Do you think people would be surprised that watch your videos casually? I'm not talking about your army
mm-hmm.
that know you really well, but do you think people would be surprised that you work 110 hours a week?
Yeah. Oh yeah, all the time.
Because they think that you just make a living fishing?
Yep. That's all they see is the fishing.
Mm-hmm.
That's all they see.
But so how many people do you have helping you
out? Just 2 right now, and that's new. I hired Paul, my editor, late last year. He's a good friend of my little brother's, and he does videos the right way. He doesn't do a whole lot of crazy stuff in them. He just kind of edits them clean and puts a little song to them, and just easy to understand,
mm-hmm.
easy to listen to. And then Scott, I still haven't figured out what he does for me. No, Scott is he's my photographer. Excuse me. He's my negotiator. He's a salesman. He's run a professional photography business on his own for 20 plus years, and he does all high-end weddings. He doesn't do little weddings.
This is all still photography and not
all
videography?
Still photography. And I do my own videography with my GoPros.
Mm-hmm.
The same way I've always done it. And he's gotten into the boat a few times with his camera and shot video. Still working out the bugs with that. But with him, I kind of have let him do what he does, which is he's kind of an event planner type deal. He's really, because he's done weddings for so many years, and what he's done for me over the last 2 months of working together, and literally only 2 months, is we've created a new branch of Flukemaster, the company, as we're mass content creators.
Mm-hmm.
This is what we do for sponsors. This is what we do for the industry. It's not what we do for YouTube.
Right.
Where we go out and he just takes tons of pictures and tons of short video and tons of everything else, and we flood my sponsors with this content
mm-hmm.
and let them do whatever they want to with it. And so we're kind of branching off and doing a little bit of that. And he travels with me when we go, and because he only has to, he can set his own schedule. But great dude, and then I'll just let him work business deals with me because he sees me as a fan. He knows he sees me different than I see myself.
Yeah.
So he can sell me a whole lot better than I can sell myself.
Yeah.
and he's done an outstanding job doing that. And I just kind of let him go. I let him do his thing, and he just comes back to me and says, "Okay, we're doing this." Okay, and I'm coachable. I know I'm where I'm at, but I'm very coachable, and he loves that about me, is that he can tell me to wait a second, let's stop, let's do it different, let's do it this way, and I'm like, yeah, that makes sense, let's go. And so he's a Marine. I was in the Army. We get along. We understand each other, but we're still trying to figure out what his label is, because he does a lot of different things for me.
He doesn't need a label.
No,
I mean,
he's just a man.
We have very few labels in my organization. Mostly all the labels are, if you work here and it needs to be done, it gets done, including me. The trash gets taken out, I'm taking it out.
Yep.
I'm not afraid to do whatever is necessary, and I don't have a label. They're always trying, like, what do you want on your business card? I'm like, just my name.
Yeah.
Like, whatever. Trash taker, outer, do everything kind of person.
Yep.
Well, that's cool. So where do you see Flukemaster going? I mean, you've made those are major changes,
Yep.
and I think that's really huge for you, because I think a lot of people, myself included, almost everyone I know, has a real hard time promoting themselves. Like, that's hard to do.
Yep.
And so to have someone that is doing that for you is huge.
Mm-hmm.
And to have someone that is doing sometimes difficult negotiations with somebody that you want to spend the next 10 years with, like a sponsor or whatever, that is huge.
Yep.
Because, some of those difficult negotiations can oftentimes not be great for the relationship, right?
Yep.
So that's huge. So I think you've set yourself up in a really good way to do a lot of other things besides what you're doing, while putting the gas on the fire. So where do you see that going?
Man, my goal is always the same. How can I teach as many people as I possibly can?
Nice.
And so the reason I want to do that mass content creation is to keep my sponsors happy, keep the money coming into my wife, and not muddy up my videos.
Mm-hmm.
And I hate to muddy up my videos with sponsor stuff, but I have obligations to them because they're paying to keep me fed. Mm-hmm. And so that was kind of the reason to start that. And the other reason is I'm listening to all my sponsors, and I'm listening to other friends and trusted people in the industry, and the companies are starving for content. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I can do that. And I just kind of got everything ready and just waited for the right person to come along and that sees, that takes really good pictures. He sees things in a different eye than I've ever. And I shot photography in high school as the editor and the photographer for our yearbook, and I understand where he's coming from, and I understand the kind of stuff he does, but he sees it different than anybody else I've ever seen. So we get different pictures. Some of them are kind of glamour shot style pictures that I don't like, but but the other ones are just he gets it. He's a fisherman. Yeah. But the cool thing about the difficult thing about a photographer who's a fisherman and you wanting to get some stuff done is he wants to fish. Mm-hmm. Scott's not that way. Scott knows enough about fishing that he knows when to have the camera in his hand. Yeah. Well, our photographer, Jason Stemple, he brings his fly rod every time we go anywhere, and he never gets to use it. He never uses it one. I think maybe once or twice he's been able to catch something, and that is when it's just so good that we've gotten a show by lunch, and we're like, okay, we're all going to eat a sandwich, and then we're leaving because we've all got things to do. We need to go home and clean all this gear, edit. We need to download all this stuff. So, Jason, you've got 5 minutes. Catch something, and he gets pretty excited. But poor Jason Stemple, he thought he was going to fish way more than he does. But he gets to take a lot of pictures with a lot of fish. That's right. But I think the still photography is hugely important, and I think it's interesting because there were several years, maybe just 4 or 5 years ago even, where I think people were thinking still photography is on its way out. Like it's completely on its way out. And I think Instagram has helped the value of still photography overall, which is kind of funny because I think that taking pictures with your cell phone and a lot of selfies and stuff like that somehow has raised the bar for high quality photographs, and people are really getting seeing the value of high quality photographs. I've always seen the value of high quality photographs, and for the last 6, 7, 8 years, we've always had a
a photographer with us almost everything we do, and for a long time I didn't know what we were going to do with all those photographs. Some of them I still don't, but you know, some way or another I found value in them, whether that's from blog posts or
Yep.
or Instagram or Facebook or whatever. There is definitely some value. But you do you have a goal number of people that you want to teach to fish?
Everybody.
Everybody?
Just my whole saying is teaching the world to fish.
Yeah, no, I like that.
And I love, and the reason I say the world is because I get questions from Brazil. I get questions from the island of Cyprus out in the Mediterranean Sea. They actually have 3 lakes that have some of the most beautiful largemouth bass you've ever seen in your life.
You should do a meet and greet there.
Oh yeah, that'd be awesome. But it's all over the place, and I love to teach people how to fish largemouth bass because it's very accessible everywhere, except up in northern Canada and that kind of places. But it's you know, I just want to teach everybody. Everybody that wants to learn, come find me, you know, and start watching. And I've got a huge playlist for beginners. That I kind of put the cap on with some really good videos this spring that has really made things kind of kick off again for me, just from beginner videos. And so that's my end game.
I like it that when I was doing my homework on you and going through your channel and watching some videos, I like it that the videos that have the most views and are the most popular and the most comments and all that are the how-to videos, and the ones like of you catching a Goliath grouper out of a kayak, while it got some views, it didn't get anywhere nearly as many views as some of the ones that just have real take-home value.
Yep.
And so you've identified your viewer and you're catering to them. And you're doing that really through these Friday night things, as well as all the comments and the people emailing you and stuff like that. I mean, you have a real connection with your audience. I mean, it's obvious. You just look at that and you're like, wow, man, this guy, the Friday night things, the way that you have that, we don't do this, but you have it on. Is that a YouTube thing that you're doing?
Yep.
Is it a YouTube live and then it has the comments off to the side? Because I don't do that ever. I usually do like Instagram live. I found Instagram's our best social media platform. So the Instagram live, if we do a live thing, the comments pop up differently. But what I like about that YouTube thing is you watch it after the fact and it looks the same as it did right then. I mean, the comments are streaming the same way, which is pretty interesting. But when I watched one of those to see kind of what you're doing there, your people are all over you.
Those questions come up quick, and the sad thing is I'm a slow reader.
Yeah.
And I tell them every once in a while, I'm like, look, guys, I try to get to every question. I'm going to miss some.
Yeah.
You know, and it's got to catch my eye for some reason, just because that's just the way I am. Dyslexia is a hard thing to overcome, especially when you're doing rapid fire questions. And I do it for an hour every Friday night from 9 Eastern to 10 Eastern, and it's a blast. It's a lot of fun. The reason I do it an hour is because that's about how long my voice can last.
Yeah.
And I start to crack about 10 minutes before it's up, and then we're done.
You're doing pretty good right now.
This isn't rapid fire either. Yeah, when I'm the only one talking, it's a whole lot different. We did a real cool one this last weekend where I had a live studio audience.
Really?
We did it at a kayak shop in Atlanta called, oh my goodness, my mind just went blank. Westbrook Supply Company, which is a kayak shop in downtown Atlanta, and had 20, 30 people in there. Had a little meet and greet and a party, barbecue and everything else, and then we did my live and made some pretty cool announcements.
That has really been happening more and more lately and becoming more and more popular, whether it's in the outdoor industry or you have people like Sam Harris and the like doing these live debate type things, and they're filling theaters because people they have become interested and invested in this person because they've listened to a lot of their podcasts. They like their views, but they want to see how their views are being challenged by somebody else that they may also listen to.
Yep.
Those are really big. Meat Eater is doing these live podcasts and filling like a Tivoli sized theater.
Good grief.
And a lot of people, I don't know, 1,200, 1,500 people going there to watch this live podcast, which I think is so interesting. The whole thing is interesting to me because like when you were first starting your thing, YouTube barely existed, and 5 years before that, you're probably thinking, well, I could make some DVDs, but how am I going to get those out there? I mean, and then you have these technological advances that open communication. The podcast is one to where we can sit here at this table. It costs whatever this recorder does, these headsets, and that's basically it.
Yep.
And I looked at the map of where just this little podcast is being listened to, and almost everywhere that's free in the world, like North Korea doesn't have a listen,
right?
But South Korea has a bunch. It's crazy, and I know your YouTube channel is the same, but it's just crazy how something that it's not even in our lifetime. It's like looking at your watch. This didn't exist 10 years ago, right? Or maybe the podcast did, but not. It was ultra geeky, and not many people were doing it. Now, it has just opened up this line of communication that is astounding to me. YouTube is the same way. So, do you see any? Do you have any forecast of where YouTube's going?
No, not really. I try to keep up with it. It changes almost weekly now. What new things are coming out and the things they're trying and stuff like that. But it's taking the place of cable. There's no doubt. I mean, cable's going down, and if cable doesn't evolve into something else, it's gonna go away. I've been very interested in seeing what that evolution would be. With YouTube, full-length movies are already here. They're just trying to do it all, and it's working, which is crazy that it's working. But the good thing is they're still keeping it inexpensive for me to do what I'm doing. I don't have to pay for airtime. I turned down three TV shows in the last 2 years.
Nice.
Because
that's interesting.
I don't want to go to my sponsors and ask them for another $500,000. Because that's 200 times more than or a lot more than what I make now. And so I don't want to go to them and say, hey, I want to have this TV show. Can you help me pay for it? When I know they don't believe in it either. And it's you're paying for airtime, and you're paying you're paying the networks to stay in business.
Now, do you think that like when you say that, I have a slightly different opinion of that. But at the same time, I'm embracing every digital opportunity that we have. Do you think that, do you think that's true across the board, or do you think that's true for certain people? Like, you got on YouTube very early, and I believe that you caught a wave where a lot of people were getting on YouTube, and then there was this fishing wave that seemed to happen around 2014, 2015, where all of the fishing YouTube channels really grew fast. I mean, a lot of them did.
Yeah, I should have gotten a GoPro sponsorship for that. Because I was the one that started using GoPros in YouTube videos, and then everybody was using GoPros for fishing.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's going to happen. I think that the same thing happened in television. I mean, the first television show that I was on was Shaw Grigsby's One More Cast, and it was on TNN, and it had 500,000 viewers. And then when we first got on TV, we were on OLN and ESPN. And so we were on that wave. I see that people that start a television show today are on a different landscape than we were. And I see that people that start a YouTube channel today are on a different landscape completely than when you started. So you were able to ride that wave. Other people were able to ride that wave. But I don't see that, like for instance, our television shows are mature and have a viewership and a name brand, and people recognize them. And if we move to different networks, those people kind of move with us because they've been watching the show for 14 years.
Right.
People have been watching you since when?
Gosh.
When did you say you
11 years ago.
So same kind of thing for you. People have been watching. And if you move to a different digital platform, I believe that you could probably take a large percentage of those people with you. So that's where I kind of think that maybe I don't know if fair is the right word, but I don't know that that you can make a comparison exactly to television shows are dead, YouTube is the way to go.
Yep.
Because if you just start a YouTube channel today, I mean, you're looking at 4 or 5 years probably before
Yep.
it reaches maturity. And if you start a television show today, it's going to take a couple of years before the sponsors have confidence in that
Yep.
television show, and confidence in the host and everything like that. So I don't know. I find that that's a funny comparison, because I'm constantly, every single day, thinking about where is television going, where is digital going, where, just like you, like, where is this all going to fall together? And I think that eventually, like, the television networks are definitely going to have to do something.
Yeah, they are.
To be in front of these people that want to cut the cord, and they're trying, they are, but our goal is we'll be wherever people are watching.
Yep.
Like,
yeah, exactly. And the thing is in my experience recently, is the numbers don't translate back and forth.
Yeah, I know.
It really does not. I mean, I co-host kayak bass fishing, or kayak bass and TV, and my truck shows up in that. Everybody knows who I am.
Mm-hmm.
Those numbers never, when that TV show airs, I never see a spike in subscribers. I never see, it doesn't translate over.
Now, do you think that's because the people that watch that show are television watchers?
Yes.
And then there's the YouTube.
Yep.
There's the YouTube watchers, and then you got the Waypoint watchers, and you've got the Hulu watchers, and you've got the Netflix people, and that's what I've always thought, because I've always thought, there are people that are on Facebook, and there are people that are on Instagram, and there are people that are on Twitter, and some of those people are going to do all three.
Mm-hmm.
But you're going to have a certain percentage that like this one, and they don't like the other two. Even that Facebook and Instagram are owned by the same people.
Yep.
I don't particularly like Facebook,
right,
personally, for my own personal use. Instagram is my preferred method. And
right,
it also seems like whatever your preferred method is, seems to be where you earn and garner that audience. Like, I put more effort into Instagram personally than I put into Facebook or Twitter. It's not the craziest thing in the world that we would have the larger following there, or the more engaged following there. And you, with YouTube, probably the same.
Yeah,
same
and
kind of
Instagram,
deal.
same thing. I really don't view YouTube as a social media outlet.
Mm-hmm.
I view it as a way to reach people. But Instagram is a lot better social media outlet, a lot easier to communicate back and forth with people. Facebook is okay, but it's so difficult to get word out now because you have to pay for it.
Yeah. Do you find that on your Instagram, are you able to see a spike when you make a post on Instagram about a new video or a new appearance or whatever?
Yep.
So Instagram and YouTube are kind of hand in hand, but television and YouTube are not.
No, and yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where my fans will watch the TV show, and they'll come back and say, "Hey, I watched you on such and such," but I rarely ever see a huge spiking in growth like you would imagine would happen, and so that tells me that it's a total different disconnect between one group and the other.
Yeah,
and there is definitely going to be some cross back and forth, but it's still. They had, and I don't know if it's an age thing or just a demographic thing or whatever. Who knows?
Even regionally.
Yeah,
I think you see other things regionally. Like I remember when we first got on, we were on the Outdoor Channel the first year we were on, and my dad couldn't get it because he had too many big trees around his house, and he had to have a dish to get Outdoor Channel.
Yep.
And that was one of the big reasons why we moved off of the Outdoor Channel, because I was like, if my dad can't get it, how many other people can't get it? I mean, here's the one person in the world that wants to watch this show more than anyone else, and he can't get it. Like, he just physically cannot get it. And so I was like, I don't think this is such a good fit. They fixed that now, but so we went to OLN and ESPN. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the digital landscape, what the television landscape. I think that's the $1 million question.
Yep.
And even the executives at both places are wondering where this is all shaking out.
And I'm so interested in seeing where it's, because it's going to have to evolve into something. And I love watching this kind of stuff happen. I'm a watcher anyway, but I love seeing what's going on and trying to make my guesses. But with TV, I got there's no guess.
Yeah.
Because I haven't seen any movement that is significant. I know they're trying. I know that they're trying to figure it out, but they're trying to figure out how to do it and still make the same amount of money.
Well, they're also handcuffed.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
They can only do so many things without jeopardizing where the real money comes from, and that's the cable. The local cable company here is the one that pays the bills.
Yep.
You know,
Oh, yeah.
ultimately, the little cable company in every city is who pays the bills.
And it may be, they may have to do kind of what I did when I changed, is make sure that they can pay the bills and then try something completely different.
Well, it's
until
good advice.
That works. You know?
It's good advice for everybody.
For sure.
Well, that's awesome. So just a couple other questions. Gosh, I had a really good one, a zinger for you. But I don't know if I have another one. But I think that what you're doing is really super cool. I think that teaching the world to fish is something that it's a noble, lofty goal, but a noble goal. And you have enough experience with the Boy Scouts and enough experience with your YouTube channel that I feel like, if that's the goal that you're setting for yourself, you're going to, if you know, it's like you know, they would say, you know, set your goal for the sun, and if you don't hit the sun, you'll at least land in the stars.
Yep,
right?
exactly.
Like, so if you have a goal of teaching the world to fish, you're probably going to teach several 100,000 or more to fish, and for my purpose is like, if that just gets a family to unite together in a moment of connection outside of technology. Funny that you're using technology to create that moment without technology, but if that could happen with either one of the things that we're doing, that would be the ultimate goal for me, I think.
Yep. My best excuse is you have to put a phone in a dry box.
Yeah.
To keep it safe. Put it in a dry box. Put it in a hatch in your boat or in your kayak, and don't pick it back up.
Yeah.
My phone's in my truck at your house right now, so it's just I don't
turn mine off and it's out there. And that's really honestly one of the things I like the most about the podcast is getting to actually sit down with somebody, look them in the eye, talk to them for an hour and a half, and I mean, I don't know, in today's world, when's the other. Yeah, there's a chance that you and I are going to sit down and do that.
Yep, and I see this in young people. The skill of communication is dying very quickly. Verbal communication is dying very quickly. I mean, I'd get mad at surgery residents during a trauma because they wouldn't talk to the staff. They would come in, assess and evaluate the patient, and walk back out and put their orders in the computer. And I'm the one with the guts to go out and start fussing and cussing at them and get them to get up and come tell their nurses what they need to do and dare tell us what we need to do, because they have completely forgotten how to communicate with other people. And, you know, I see that with young men in Scouts a lot. And the ones that communicate well, I tell them, do not lose that ability, because you're going to be heads and tails above a lot of people in your generation because you know how to communicate.
Right.
And so it's going away because of digital communication, because of texting. You know, my son, well, not my son, but I wonder how many people have asked their wife to marry them through text as compared to.
I told my son that there's no way he can ask his girlfriend, ask a girl to prom through text. I was like, no, no. Are you kidding? No.
Yep.
It's not right.
It's just they just lose that ability, and I see a lot of it. Boys scared to ask girls out on a date. Face to face. They'd rather do it through a text because it's it doesn't make any sense to me. It drives me nuts. But what I tell them when they turn 16 is don't waste their money on somebody else's wife.
Yeah.
Don't have a girlfriend serious. Keep your money. I wasted a lot of money as a teenager on girlfriends.
Yeah.
So go out and have fun with a bunch of people. And I tell them that's one of my sayings, and everybody, Scouts for 20 years have known. Mr. Jensen says, don't waste your money on somebody else's wife.
Well, again, that's another pice of good advice.
Yeah.
That's another piece of good advice. So to wrap this up, do you feel like you're in a good place right now and ready to tackle the next year? You got anything going on that has you kind of questioning your future, or which direction you take all of this?
No. It's just my biggest question is how.
Yeah.
is always, how can I get it done? How can how can I maintain a 8.5 acre farm and do all this at the same time? I got home from my trip to Minnesota and the grass needed to be mowed, and it's an 8-hour job on a zero turn. And so it's just one of those things where it's just like, it's how do I get it all done, and can I get it done in a day, and it's just a matter of planning and not being afraid not to get it done either. If something doesn't happen, then it doesn't happen. And I don't stress over it. I let my wife do the stressing, and I just and it drives her nuts. I roll with the punches, and I always have. I guess it's a sports guy in me. I played soccer almost up to professional level, and I'm just one of those things that just roll with the punches. And so what's coming up is just, I'm excited about it. I'm excited that things keep being dropped in my lap that are good challenges and are good for me and good for the industry and good for my fans and whoever wants to learn how to fish. And as long as I maintain my goals, and the one thing that I have failed to do is make new goals. And I realized that a few weeks ago is I haven't made any new goals lately. And I had a whole bunch of goals prior to quitting my job. And I've reached all those goals, and I haven't made any new lofty ones, and I haven't really sat down and thought about it yet. Maybe I will on this drive to Louisiana.
Yeah.
And just think about what's coming up and what are my next steps. I'll never grow as fast as the bigger YouTubers. Never. And it's never something I worried about, because I will always continue to grow as fast as I always have. And I don't worry about it, because I just want to teach that one person how to fish. And if that one person learns and I hear about it, it's great. I ran into a guy at a live event, or the live show this Friday. He says, Gene, you taught me everything I know about bass fishing. Everything. He said, my dad doesn't fish. Nobody in my family fishes. You taught me everything. And that used to be my goal, was I wanted to have a 40-year-old man come up to me and say, you taught me everything that I know about bass fishing. It happens all the time now. It's not a goal anymore. So I've got to come up with some new ones. Yeah. And because that's what, that's.
Are you goal-oriented?
Yes, I always have been. Now, I blame that on my mom. She always made sure that I had goals and things I wanted to do. Eagle Scout, and, was always the best at soccer and was a really good wide receiver in football, and just, wanted to be the fastest, and I always had goals to get to that point.
What does your goal-setting process look like? If you were to have a goal, how do you ensure that you're going to accomplish that for in your own way?
I first have to see a need, to a point. Like when I started YouTube, I began to see a need of somebody teaching people how to fish, because the industry wasn't doing it. And then I kind of take little baby steps towards that goal. I set a big goal, but then I say, okay, how can I get there? And I'm not a bull in a china shop, because if the little things don't work, I'll find different ways to reach that big goal. I can juke and jive, basically. And then I always have followed what felt good. I mean, Alumacraft called me and offered me a free boat every year. Did I take it right away? Nah, I waited 4 days. I did. I hung up the phone, and I thought about it and prayed about it, and I did what I need for 4 days, and I got to the point where I felt comfortable with it, and I was like, okay, we can roll with this. And if it just didn't feel right, then it would have been a different story. And it had nothing to do with the fact that it was a free boat. Was it right for me at that time? Was it right for me to do it? And that's kind of how I make my decisions. And if it's going towards that goal, then okay, then I do it. And I told them, I said, looking back, they saved my career when they offered me a new boat, because 4 days before that, my boat had split 36 inches down the keel. They didn't know that. They had no clue.
Wow.
I had just told my wife that I was going to spend another $32,000 on a boat. And 4 days after that, I get a phone call or get a Facebook message that turned into a phone call from Alumacraft. I didn't contact them. And that's kind of that's the way things have kind of worked out for me along the way. And that's why I told my wife years ago in arguments, hey, I haven't asked for a lot of this. It comes to me, and if it feels good, I do it. And the main goal is always teaching the world to fish. Always, I want to teach everybody that I can how to fish. And then what are the goals that lead up to that? And that's kind of where I'm missing right now, is I'm missing where are the goals that lead up to that. And it may just be a group of videos I need to do. So who knows?
Well,
but I got plenty of time to think about it.
I got to tell you, man, you're doing a really good job. You've got a strong why. I think that's super important in my goal setting process is why is it that you want to do this? And you hear a lot of people, that's kind of like a good catchphrase these days of, oh, what's your why? But really it's as simple as, is there a good reason that you're doing this? Is it serving a higher purpose? Are you serving other people besides yourself?
Yep.
And you seem to have that, and that seems to be a primary motivator. So I don't have any doubts that you're gonna make it.
Yeah.
So I want to acknowledge you for that and being a good servant to the fishing community, man.
Yeah.
I mean, you're teaching a lot of people, and you've got an army behind you. So tell everybody two things.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, why is it Flukemaster?
Yep.
What is it?
You remember back in the early 2003, 2004 bass fishing forums or fishing forums? That was the original. For me, that was my introduction to social media.
Okay.
I had to come up with a screen name, and I was very new into bass fishing, bank fishing. Had been doing it for a couple of years, but I'd found the Zoom Fluke, not the Super Fluke, not the Zoom Fluke. And it was the same period of time where everybody had screen names with Master at the end, Bassmaster, Ed Bassmaster, famous YouTube comedian. It's the same thing happened to him. We came up with these screen names on these forums, and those screen names became our identity.
Yeah.
And Ed Bassmaster, I don't know if you know who he is, but he had a TV show on CMT. He's a famous YouTube comedian. But he started out in the same forums I did as Ed Bassmaster, and he couldn't shake it. And so when it came time for me my original channel name was The Fishing Partner. And when it came time for me to figure out what my brand was and to brand the whole thing, I was dumb not to go with Flukemaster, because the second biggest term searched on Google was Flukemaster behind fishing. Wow. And so I had to use it, and it has stuck. And so I've tried to separate myself from the brand. So that's why at the beginning of my videos I introduce myself with my name and not with Flukemaster, and that way it's a brand separate from me. But yeah, that's how it all got started. It just stuck, and my fans were like, and when it was still a fishing partner, and right about the time I was trying to figure out, they basically called me stupid for having it the fishing partner. They said, you need to go ahead and change it to Flukemaster. Why haven't you changed it to Flukemaster? So I changed it. Wow. And then I trademarked it and did all the things I needed to. So now other people that steal that name on on social media deals, I can have them shut down, which is nice. So then I can hold that name. But yeah, it's nothing crazy. It was just something I had to come up with. Come up with that name.
So one of those early things. I was on the way I booked my first charter online was the AOL. AOL used to have chat rooms.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it was the FBN, Fishing Broadcast Network. Do you remember that? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's old school.
Yeah, it is.
Like dial-up modem and super old school. But for whatever reason, I got a MacBook, and I got it so that I could write letters to my customers. Mm-hmm. And somehow I got connected to the internet, and I'm like, what's this? There's like something about fishing here. And I used to get on those fishing forums, and they were really chat rooms at that point.
Yep.
And you would go in there and talk, and I would just talk about my day. And this guy that I'm still in touch with today, Kyle Quillen, he booked the trip. He's like, okay, I want to go. We're going to go to the Marquesas, and we set the whole thing up online.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so weird.
Yep.
There was not a single phone call.
Right.
I had no idea what to expect, and come to find out after talking to him, we fished a lot together. And then come to find out, I'm like, that first time we fished together, was that as weird for you as it was for me? Because that was super weird.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, it was so weird. I didn't know if we were going to go out to the Marquesas, with a serial killer.
Yep.
You never know what you were going.
Back then, meeting people online was not something we did.
Weird.
Yep.
But it turns out that back then, the people that were online were all about it. Like they were the great people.
Yep.
I mean, honestly, because there were so few at that point. Okay, so the other thing I wanted to ask you was how do people find you? What do they do?
There's several different ways. You can simply go to YouTube and look up how to fish.
Okay.
And look for the guy.
Man, you're pretty confident that you're going to show up number one.
I won't be number one. I'll be in the top. I'll be in the first page.
Okay.
And you look for the guy with the red Georgia Bulldog hat on.
Uh-huh.
It's kind of my moniker. It has nothing to do with Bill Dance and the Tennessee hat.
Uh-huh.
My little brother, when I first got started, he was like, "You better get a hat." I'm like, "Well, why?" And he doesn't know who Bill Dance is, and he's got a master's degree in marketing, and he was like, "Nobody's going to recognize you ever unless you have something that you wear all the time." And I told him, I said, "Well, there's only one hat I would ever wear all the time, and that's a Georgia Bulldog hat." So there, search up how to fish, or you can search up Flukemaster. And you can Google it. I'm on Instagram as it. I'm on Snapchat as it. I'm on Facebook. I'm on everywhere that you can find as Flukemaster, and then start watching videos and see what you learn. I don't just cover basics. I cover all the way up to advanced. I do offshore fishing. That's what I did today. I caught them on a ledge out in 20 feet of water. I'm about to start rolling out a whole bunch of fish finder videos as soon as I finish the contract. But I just, I do from very beginner all the way to advanced, and I've got everything in between, and I just do whatever is in season and whatever is working, and a lot of it is from the hip, and it's fun. It's a lot of fun, and you'll see me here in the future in a lot of ads and a lot of other things. That's the part of the content creation stuff. So.
All right. Well, I look forward to it. I'm sure everybody else does.
Oh yeah.
That's Flukemaster. Go to YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, your favorite social media platform. Look up Flukemaster, and if you need to learn how to fish, or if you know somebody who is struggling to learn how to fish, this is a great resource, truly great resource. In fact, it may be the best resource out there, Flukemaster. Go check that out, and until next week, we'll see you.